Welcome back to Vincent's Bike Ride. And as you can see, I'm not riding my bike today. I'm actually on my feet. You just saw my bike there, parked beside that park bench beside my tent, and that's where I've been sleeping last night. And today I had a day off, basically to try to catch up on the video rendering. I won't dwell on that, I've mentioned it way too many times. I keep dribbling on about it. It's just because it's something that's often in my head. But I thought I'd show you where I stayed at that campsite where you saw I arrived at the end of the video from yesterday, with voiceover Vincent narrating. And this is where I stayed, so you could walk down to the beach. To be honest, this is the only time I went to the beach. I'm not a beach person. I actually don't like sand. I know it's a strange thing not to like, but it just gets in everything. It's a pain to deal with. So I'm not a big fan of the sand, but it's a lovely view from here, so I thought I'd take the camera for a little walk. See the sea, see the seashore. The campsite is quite it's a nice enough camp. It is expensive, I think overpriced, especially for someone like myself who's just in a tent. I don't have a car or anything. But they have got a nice lounge area which I took advantage of. I could sit in there with my tablet and do rendering and read a book while that's happening. Because there's electrical outlets I could use. I had the whole place to myself. I was sitting at one stage during the day today, and a dove came in. Oh, sorry, a pigeon, not a dove. A pigeon came in and wandered in and pecked away at the floor for a while and then wandered out. It was a very big pigeon. I think this is a thing it does frequently. After I arrived yesterday, though, I did actually go to Arera town. It's just down the road, and I went to the supermarket and bought some food, and there's a refrigerator in this kitchen area here. The kitchen area's got good facilities but no cutlery or pots, which is a bit annoying, and no drying tools, no washing tools. I think there was some washing liquid, and that's about it really. But it does have good cookers, and a refrigerator you could use, so I took advantage of that and bought some things I could refrigerate and consume today and of yesterday evening. Otherwise, that's all I really used here. There was a washing building as well, a washing area, which I did a load of washing. I think it was actually after I took this video. God, this is pretty boring, isn't it? I'm talking about my washing now. Yeah. So anyway, that was the beach. I didn't talk about it because to me it's just a beach. Now we'll have a look at the sand. Yeah, look at that sand. It's very, very sandy. Yes, that's why it's called sand. And back to the campsite. But yeah, so tomorrow we're back on the road, which is actually going to be on the same video as this one, because this is just a brief interlude into my day off. So we'll be back in a second with me back on the bike. And we're back on Vincent's Bike Road now for day 9 part 1. And yet again, you most likely can notice I've messed up. This time I forgot to turn on my microphone. Yep, that old chestnut. I just can't help myself. I have to make a mistake at all times, it seems. But anyway, we're leaving Arera's campsite. There you can see me looking back at the campsite area behind that hedgerow. So yes, today there will be no ambient noise for the first part of the ride. I do realise the camera's not on. I actually think, hang on, camera's not on. But it's actually after quite some time. And so I'm afraid you're stuck with voiceover Vincent again. And as I said before with these voiceovers, this is recorded quite some time after the event. So we're going along the, I guess the promenade of, it's not really a promenade, is it? But you can see the sea out there. So we're near the beach of Aurora and going into the town. Yesterday, so at the start of this video, I mentioned how I went into the town. This is where I went into. Going into this area here. I didn't actually go anywhere near the beach. This is as close as I've got to the beach, apart from that little video I made at the start of, well, I made yesterday for day 8, for my day off, which is really just a day of rendering. Yay, yay for me. Yeah, that's a very, I guess, touristy place tourists would go, or holiday makers, I think, more so than tourists. Well, I guess both. Nowadays, as you know, with the way the world is, there's not so much foreign tourism, so it's mainly holiday makers. And this is, of course, at the end of the season, so it's not so busy. It was around here that I went to the supermarket the day before. I can't remember which of these streets. I can't remember going past Mac Diarrhea, so I think this is past the supermarket turn off, but that doesn't matter. Yeah, I was actually quite surprised by there's not so many hotels here as well. Like, I thought there would be just, you know, hotel after hotel after hotel, like I've seen in many foreign countries at the seaside areas. But no, there are some hotels here, you'll see the signs for them. But yeah, I was actually quite surprised how few there were. I think a lot of the more wealthy people own little houses, or batches they call them in New Zealand. A batch is like a small, to be honest, it would be quite a nice place to live for most people, but in New Zealand people like to have houses bigger than they really need. It's because there's so much space. But yeah, say an apartment in London, the batch is bigger than that. So yeah, the batches they have here for their little holiday places where they go on in the summer months, maybe for a while, or for weekends away from work. Yeah, so I think there's a lot of them around this area. These would be expensive ones, I think, because I think it's still quite close to Auckland, so you get all the, you know, the rich people working all the banking and such, all those horrible industries, all the ones that steal the workers' money, you know, all those, I won't say a bad word, but it's what I feel like saying. But now we're coming to the end of Aurora, which is good because the name is quite horrible to say for me. It's awkward. It doesn't flow off the tongue at all. But yeah, from here we you can see the road is rising, and it's actually, the next part of the road is just really steep. I know I moan about the hills all the time, but it's what I'm faced with all the time. And yeah. And as I said, the camera does make the hills look not as steep as they are in reality. It's I'm sure it's to do with the depth of field. The camera makes things look further away than they really are. I've mentioned that before with signs. I'll read out a sign, say, and in the footage you look at it, you can barely see the sign. It looks quite a distance away. When in reality the sign's very easy for me to read because it's not that far away. That'll also come through, and when cars come past me, and now and again I'll say, wow, that was close, because they are close. And on the footage they don't look so close, and again this is because of the distortion of the lens. So when they go past me, and the reason I'm mentioning this section of the road coming up, not right now because we have quite a good place I can ride, as you can see. It does get very narrow at times today, really narrow. It was actually, to be honest, when we get onto State Highway 1 especially, which is a lot more busy, it was a terrifying road to go on. I hope I never ever have to go on this road again. This road, and mainly the State Highway 1, it is absolutely dreadful. It's got no area for the cyclist to ride on, so you're on the actual, on the road itself, on the right hand side of this white line that I try to stay to the left of. And you've got trucks and cars, and they just fly past you. They don't even seem to care that you're there, some of them. I mean, a lot of them do move over a bit, but even when there's two lanes, like there's a passing lane area, or it's a dual carriageway, they'll stay in the lane. They don't even bother going to the other lane. I think they just see, oh, it's just a cyclist, and they don't care. Which is just dreadful. As I've said before, I think people should have to ride bicycles or not have access to cars so young in New Zealand. It's 15 in New Zealand. You can buy a big metal death machine and go as fast as you like, it seems. There seems to be no restriction on the cars they're allowed to have, and they all like to get these big American gas guzzling things, which are huge and just pointless in what they're using them for. It's just totally for ego. Oh, look at me, I've got a big American car, I'm rich and cool. That's all it is. But yeah, so this road that we come up to, the State Highway 1, is just absolutely dreadful. I actually was quite honestly scared half the time. Sometimes I'd get off my bike and push the bike rather than ride the bike just because of the traffic. It's just scary. So yeah, when I come back down from up north, I don't know what I'll do. I really, really don't have to go down that road again. It's the only road, so yeah, we'll see what I can do about that. It is, I'd say, the worst road I've ever been on. As I see, we're going past another little beach area. That one's not built up at all. I don't know why. But of course, then the road goes straight up another hill. These hills were very steep, just straight up, and a lot of the time it was very hard. But yeah, this section, the traffic wasn't too heavy, so it wasn't too scary. So I managed to plod along. You can see here how there's very little room for a cyclist. Yeah, this day was just a quite horrible day, and to be honest, the next few days of riding were just as bad. To be honest, the road, it is just dreadful. I have been on roads in Bulgaria. I think it was Bulgaria or Serbia. They come to mind with the scary aspects of the road, as in those ones were more from, well, it was actually Serbia, I'm quite sure. The roads were quite unkept, they were pretty worn out, so where the trucks and heavy vehicles go, they'd pick grooves in the road, and the side of the road where I would ride would be pushed because of these trucks, and it was all rippled and rough, so you really had to ride where the truck wheels went, so you're actually driving on the road. But the good thing was the drivers were courteous there, so if I heard a car coming, I'd go onto the rough bit and jangle over the bumps, and they'd just slow down and pass me. Where in New Zealand, I think because I have considered just riding in the lane just so the traffic has to slow down, but I don't think they would. I think they'd just race past very close to me, crossing the centre line, and most likely, get really close. And the problem is when the vehicles get close to you, they don't realise, because they're car drivers, they've never experienced, travelling on a bicycle with the cars whizzing by. And they may have ridden a bicycle in towns where the cars aren't going so fast. But when they go past, not so much cars, but they do affect you a little bit, but the lorries especially, is the wind from the truck is pushing a lot of wind. I don't know what the guy's going, he's out wandering in the middle of nowhere. The truck goes past and it's creating a big wind. It's pushing the wind from the front of it, the air from in front of it, and it pushes out to the side. So this wind pushes you towards off the road. So it's pushing you off the road. So if you've got here we've got a nice big area so I can keep away from the traffic. But when there's no area, the trucks, literally they're pushing you off the road with the gust of air. And then when they've gone past, behind the truck, of course, there's a hole where the air isn't because the truck is pushing through it so rapidly. So the air all falls in back behind the truck and creates essentially a kind of a vacuum effect. And so I get pulled from that. So as a truck goes past, first you get pushed and then you get pulled. And especially when you're going slow like this here, this is absolutely terrible. I mean, you've got the space to make a road with a bit of an area on the side here, but they just don't bother to save a bit of money. Who cares if cyclists die, yeah? They can save a few dollars so the company owners and the government people can pocket a bit more money and buy another expensive piece of junk they don't need, but they can show off to everyone and go, look at me, I'm rich. Yeah. So you get, when these vehicles go past, you get pushed and then pulled. So when you're going slow up a hill like now, you end up wobbling quite a lot because first you get pushed and then you get pulled and you're having to try to stop that push-pull from affecting you too much. But it was a slow crawl up these hills, and as I said, fortunately the traffic before I get to the State Highway 1 is not too heavy, so I could crawl along. One thing that does concern me about is in the future, with the big government pushes and it's mainly the big corporations are pushing, the electronics and technology corporations, the big push for self-driving vehicles. I'm just worried about how that will affect cyclists. They call it, they say they use artificial intelligence, but the only truth about that statement is it's artificial. There's no intelligence. They use algorithms to determine what they decide is what the vehicle will do, and the algorithms adapt in some ways. They can adapt and try to learn how to do things, but there's no intelligence. They proved quite a while ago now with, I think it was Microsoft, they made a so-called AI and they put it, I think, on the internet to do like social media or something. I can't remember exactly what. And it only lasted a very short time because it pretty much just started becoming horrible, racist and all these sorts of things, because that's what it was being exposed to, and that's what I thought, well, this is normal, and started doing that. So how will they program the cars if they start watching the traffic? And oh man, if they started watching New Zealand traffic, that'll be terrible. It'll be like, oh well, we don't have to worry about cyclists, we'll just zoom past as fast as we like. So it's just going to come down to the programming, which again, as we fly down this hill, that's the hill we just came down behind. I had to, of course, that part was where my camera, after about half an hour, for some reason, I don't know why, it'll stop recording and then start again. It's only on the 360 lens. On the 4K lens, it'll video till the battery dies. I don't know why it does it. It's annoying. Fortunately, it does make a beep, and now I've learnt to, if I hear the beep, that I've lost some time, and I know there'll be a cut in the video, so I don't continue talking. As this is a voiceover, I don't have to really worry about that. But anyway, back to the self-driving cars. Yeah, it's all going to be down to the programming and who programs it. And it's most likely going to be done by big corporations. American, that's the scariest part, is it's going to be American corporations. So the focus is going to be entirely on, the money, about how much money they can make, how much they can sell this software for to other car manufacturers, or I hope It just scares me. It's a great way also to monitor the people, isn't it? They'll always know where you are because they've got a 100% marker on you the whole time. But one thing I've also wondered about how will they do it is with the insurance of them, because I think the insurance will be a big part of how they program it. There's one of those, I can't remember what it is, like an empathy test or something, or it's I think one of them still trains, and you can change track line. So I see down that way is a camping area. That's actually a free camping area, I think. I don't go there, I don't need it, so I never find out. But yeah, this test it's one you might have heard of. It's when when a question is asked of you, if there's a train track, there's two tracks, the fork in the track, sorry, and there's a train coming, it can't slow down in time. And on one side there's, say, an old man who's got poor health and he's stumbling across the line. But the other side there's a family something's happened and they're stuck on the line and they can't get off. There's children and some people trying to help them. There's maybe half a dozen, maybe even 10 people on that line. And the train's going to hit all these people, like this group of 10 people. But you could pull the lever and it would head off to hit just this one frail old man who's ill. What do? Do you choose to flick the line or not? It's some test they have. So with the cars, the self-driving cars, this is also going to be a thing which they'll have to program into the software, won't they? At the moment, this is generally done, these sort of things in a car, it's done by the driver, and so it's down to what they feel is right. Either way, it's a no-win situation, so it doesn't really matter which one you choose, it's always going to be bad. But when a corporation's choosing it, and especially if insurance is involved, and insurance is one of those most disgusting, horrible industries in the whole world. So they're going to decide on life and death now, if it comes to self-driving cars. So in that circumstance, they're generally going to choose what is the most financially beneficial to them. In that case, I'd imagine they'd go for killing the old man, just because if he survives by any chance, or if he does die, I mean, there's only one funeral cost for the insurance to cover, one payment to make out, instead of more people to pay out on. And if people live, you've got the health bill for however long it takes to rehabilitate them, if they survive the process. And again, that's going to cost a lot more money. I have actually heard people say it could be even, I don't think they'd do this, but it's possible. Say the car, you're in a car, a self-driving car, and there's someone steps out in front of you. It's totally the person's fault. It's not the car's fault, it's not the driver, well, it's no driver, it's self-driving. But it's not the car's fault, it's totally the person steps out in front of a car and it's an impossible situation. But the car, of course, can hit the brakes, and being self-driving, it can instantly hit the brakes because it can react much faster than a human. If the insurance is deciding on these things, they could program it to go, well, hit the person and don't slow down, just hit them. Apply the brakes, but maybe not as much as it really could. Just to hopefully, in the insurance eyes, kill the person. Because of course this will then make a lot less insurance costs. They're not going to have to pay for the medical care of this person, especially if they hit them and say they end up being crippled or something, and then they've got a lifetime of bills. Insurance companies don't want to do that. I mean, they won't pay out on most things anyway. They do everything in their power never to pay, which is frankly terrible. As I just have a quick drink here. Yes, insurance is one of those companies I have absolutely no faith in and no love of. Any company that it's in there, you pay them money, and theoretically they should, if you have a problem which they're covering, like as in you're insured, say, for your car and it gets in an accident and they're meant to cover that cost, or you're in a building and there's a natural disaster and they cover the cost to rebuild it. But it's in the company's best interest not to pay out, if they do pay out, to pay the minimum they can, because they're a greedy they're greedy companies at the end of the day. So it's in no interest of them to actually help the person who's been hurt, or the vehicle, or the house. In fact, it's the opposite. It's in their best interest to not pay out. And who gets to choose if they pay out or not? Well, they do. So you can see the problem here. They're choosing when to pay out or when not to pay out, and it's in their best interest to never pay out. It's a terrible system. There should be independent bodies deciding when insurance companies pay out, not the insurance companies themselves. But of course, they're rich, powerful companies, and they're tied into banks, which are terrible companies as well. I remember the days when banks used to give you interest. Now they charge you. Got to suck that last penny out of every person's pocket. Well, anyway, I'm going to take a rest here, and this is actually when I realise I didn't have my audio on. So I hopefully will have resume proper audio after this break. And we're still climbing hills. Oh God. Just went off the verge there. Couldn't get my foot on the right side of the pedal there. Oh. This is quite horrible. Bloody hell. There's just no room. I'm gonna have to walk, I think. It's wobbling. I'm almost there. Oh yes, another passing lane. Have a drink of water. ambulance. Well, one of my panniers is trying to escape. Get back on there. Everything else is okay? Yes. And here's the rest area where I'm going anyway. So that bag could have fell off any second then. We'll have a break here. We'll see you on the other side of the break.